Whitman Middle School was established in 1961. The school is named for Walt Whitman, one of America's most important poets. Walt Whitman was born near Huntington, Long Island, New York in 1819 to Walter and Louisa Van Velser Whitman. When he was 4 years old, the Whitman family moved to Brooklyn, New York. At age 17, Whitman became a teacher on Long Island in one-room schoolhouses. In 1841, he switched careers, breaking into journalism. By 1855, Walt Whitman had published his first volume of poetry, Leaves of Grass. Over the next 27 years, Whitman continued to expand Leaves of Grass, periodically adding more poems and publishing newer editions. One of Whitman's best-known and best-loved poems, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, was published in 1856 as part of the second edition of Leaves of Grass. The poem is about a man taking the Brooklyn Ferry home from Manhattan at the end of his workday. Early in the American Civil War, Walt Whitman traveled to Washington, D.C. to care for his younger brother, George, who had been wounded at the Battle of Fredericksburg. The sight of all the gravely wounded soldiers profoundly affected Walt Whitman. He found a job in Washington, D.C., and spent the remaining war years making hundreds of visits to local Army hospitals. Whitman often sat with dying soldiers, comforting them, and wrote letters to their families. After the war, until the early 1870s, Whitman continued to live in Washington. During his time in Washington, Whitman published a famous eulogy to President Lincoln entitled, "O Captain, My Captain," and a collection of poetry influenced by the war called Drum Taps. In 1873, at the age of 54, Whitman suffered a stroke. He moved to Camden, New Jersey, where he lived out the remaining years of his life. Walt Whitman died in 1892 and was buried in Harley Cemetery in Camden. Many schools throughout the United States are named for Whitman, one of America's preeminent poets.